Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. Today we're going deep dive. This is Egypt, issue number 1. This is DC Comics under the Vertigo banner. Vertigo was like a little subset within DC that like was more like mature audience. It went right to the direct market, and because of that, they could have like cursing and nudity and violence and all that good stuff. This is a 7-issue series, and you can get it in one collection. It's kind of obscure, so I don't know how difficult or easy it is to find. But it's written by Peter Milligan. Okay, yeah, it's written by Peter Milligan and the art by Glenn Dillon. I know nothing about Glenn Dillon other than this series, so I apologize for that. But Peter Milligan, he started writing Shade the Changing Man. It was like a modern version of or a 90s version of Steve Ditko's character for DC Comics. And it was wonderfully trippy and bizarre. And the first 12 issues made one gigantic story. Then after that, it just went off the rails in a wonderful way. So I've always had a fondness for Peter Milligan. He's just one of these Brits that just bring a psychedelic trippiness to comic books that I really enjoyed. I don't know how much I'm into that these days, but at the time, it was what I wanted and what I needed. So let's see. The cover price was $2.50. All right. Let's open up the book. Okay, this was a mystery play. Grant Morrison and this was a lot of fun. Anything by Grant Morrison is another British trippy comic. He's Scottish, and Muth, what a wonderful artist. So the Book of the Remains. Peter Milligan, I already said. Glenn Dillon, I don't really know anything about. Tatiana Wood is a old school pen and paint, pen and ink colorist, married to the late Wally Wood. Ellie D. Mill, I don't know anything about. Helen Craven, I don't know anything about. Art Young was one of the editors. And this was all under Karen Berger. Karen Berger was in charge of Vertigo. And she created and spearheaded this imprint that was just, I don't know how commercially successful it was, but it was a critical success and everybody loved it. So here's this guy's stuff is getting thrown out the window. Okay, so a lot of writing. The Vertigo had like highfalutin ideas of being more literary and everything like that. So there was always a lot of reading, which didn't bother me. I want to read something. So you read a Vertigo comic, you're there for the afternoon. So this he's a Brit, and he's getting kicked out of his apartment, and here's his girlfriend just throwing everything, taking perverse joy in throwing everything out the window, And, I was about to read stuff, but I decided against reading it. So here he is, just like, what am I going to do now? What am I going to do now? He's gathering up all the stuff, and he goes to his friends, and he's asking if he can stay with his friends. And they're a bunch of weirdos, is a nice way to put it. So he's sleeping on the couch with the weirdos, and, they're just, he doesn't know what to expect from them. They don't expect from him, and they practice a weird religion. And he's just like, I don't care, man. Whatever you want to do in the privacy of your own home, it doesn't. I just need a place to stay for a couple of days. So, whatever. So they're nice enough. The weirdos with the religion, and I thought it's taken a while to pick up. Oh yeah, so now they're going out to a house they talk him into like, oh, come join us, we'll get booze, get your mind off your ex-girlfriend. So they're staying at this house, and of course one of the girls hits on them, just like cults, they come and get you when you're down and out. And now she's handcuffed, she's tied up to the bed and whatever, and now he's just falling asleep and dreaming. And what do? They're doing like some sort of ritual on them. They think that they're like ancient Egyptians or whatever, and they're gonna entomb him alive. So that's what they do. They're entombing him alive in like a sarcophagus for their crazy, wacky religion. And then they bury him up, and he's like, I'm gonna get them. What's going on? They got me. And then what happens is he wakes up and he's in ancient Egypt. Now, is this a hallucination? Did he actually time travel? How does he understand the language? That's Peter Milligan for you. And here's like these priests in ancient Egypt are taking him out, and he's freaking out because in their sect, they entomb people alive. So they expect you to come out a little wacky, whatever, maybe other time travelers or whatever. So they're kind of used to him being weird. So here he is, like, looking around, what's going on? how did I, what do they see? He's coming out of the tomb, and he's just like, what is it like? Did I pass out? Did they switch it? What's going on? He looks outside, and here we have the pyramids are being constructed. So he's like, I was in Egypt. I really was. So he was kind of in denial, didn't know if it was drugs, stuff like that. So I'm not going to go any further. This was just a wonderfully trippy, bizarre comic about a guy down and out in New York City. He's a Brit, so I think a lot of these guys did a lot of self-inserting. And, his girlfriend throws him out, meets a new girl. Well, he goes to friends. They talk him into, whatever, going to some weekend house for a crazy sex cult thing. And he's just like, yeah, sure, why not? Yeah. And he finds himself now transported to ancient Egypt. And it is just, I liked it because it's like slice of life of a regular person in Egypt. And I don't know if I ever told you, but I have a history degree. I have a degree in ancient history. So this was right up my alley. We all know what the generals and the pharaohs and, and the prophets and the leaders and the presidents of the past lived like. But what was the common person like? One of my favorite books is about the common life of a regular person in ancient Rome. Well, this was kind of like an out of, literally a stranger in a strange land of this modern, he was already a stranger being a Brit living in England, I believe it, living in New York, and now he's living in ancient Egypt. Ta-da. I thought it was a good, trippy, bizarre story. It's only 7 issues. I can't imagine it being expensive because nobody knows about this comic. But, I liked it. This Vertigo stuff was a very bizarre, very strange period in comics history, and I really do miss it. A rising tide floats all boats, and back in the 90s, comics were doing so good, gangbusters good, that comic companies could afford to take chances on these bizarre little, interesting little stories, and I took full advantage of it. If Vertigo published it, I pretty much got it. For every one miss, there was like 5 or 6 hits. You know what I mean? So yeah, sometimes you got a stinker comic that whatever didn't pay off, but most of the time you got a really wonderful comic. They brought Vertigo back like 2 years ago, and I think Andy Diggle was the editor. And oh god, it was just abysmal. They ended up folding over. One of the greatest imprints in comic book history was destroyed in less than a year, but what do you want me to say? I don't know. Comics, I say this over and over again, comics ain't what they used to be. But there you go. This is Egypt. This was a fun, trippy, I at this time, I was totally into Jack Kerouac and Allen Ginsberg and a lot of the beat writers and stuff like that. I was, so this was hand in hand with that stuff. I loved all this trippy, bizarre stuff. It's so good. And I look back at it fondly. Some stuff I'm like, oh, I don't need that anymore. But this was a fun read. I heartily recommend it. Okay? Thanks a lot for taking time out of your busy day. And I'll see you tomorrow with another video. Bye-bye.